So a lot of things are broken in insurance, and particularly it is sad because insurance at its core is a data algorithm, right? It's a probabilistic mathematical algorithm predicting your probability of having a crash or your probability of getting hospitalized. But somehow we've lost our way, and it has become more a sort of a sales engine than the actual core of the product.
Biggest concern right now is ROI. So what do you think? Can AI give a ROI?
Cost of an insurer goes down, and obviously when the cost goes down, premium goes down, hopefully. And that leads to more distribution and more customers. So that virtuous loop is what onboard distribution claim side is what I think AI can actually influence. I think a lot of generative AI is also being used in creating very targeted marketing stories to customers, addressing their anxieties, which again improves your conversion rate. In fact, good example in credit cards at Capital One, right? We used to say unit of N. So you start with a population of 100, but can you build like the more accurate model at smaller segment, right? So you say build it at a decile level, then make it even tinier.
Hello everyone. We have a Pranshu Diwan with us, and who has more than almost 2 decades of experience in the industry, and he has worked with the great companies like Ola, Paytm, also Aditya Birla Health Insurance. He has also entrepreneur spirit and ventured in the 2 startups, and also he is IIT Mumbai and IIM Calcutta alumni. And welcome, Pranshu.
Thanks, HItul. Thanks.
Okay, so I would like to start with your journey. Maybe if you can tell audience about your journey. How you started your career, what kind of companies you work with, what kind of problems you solved, and what made you, become a sales or business guy from a techie.
Yeah, from the machine learning side of data side,
Yes.
side of things to the business side of things. Yeah, so actually after undergrad college, I started with a company called Capital One, which is into credit cards, as a business analyst, right? So we would work with teams of statisticians, data engineers, and us business analysts in figuring out models, right? So and applying it to business context, right? So right from credit line management models, how do you figure out how much line to give to different customers over time, to response propensity models. And I did a lot of this work at HSBC after that, HSBC private label credit cards. For example, direct mail campaigns, right? So you'd send a direct mailer to customers and they would respond. So who do you send a direct mailer, because there's a cost associated with, how do you fit it on a response model, but also look at risk, right? So you want to optimize for both. And what, in fact, we used to get to a level where the color of the font also made a difference, what promotional offer to offer, right? And that's, I think this is more machine learning or more statistical models than AI as it exists today. Post that, I worked at a consulting company called Essex Lake Group. That was where I did my first project for an insurance company, MetLife. Followed by, after my MBA, I joined Aditya Birla Health Insurance. I was part of the founding team, employee number 9. Worked on a bunch of stuff, worked on digitization, sales digitization, built an app for example, advisors. Then I was also leading a distribution channel called the non-traditional distribution channel, part of Affinity. And then towards the end, I was heading analytics there. So figuring out how you can use data again, and also understanding insights, what is happening and so on. Post that, I actually founded 2 companies. One company was GoPlanner. The first company was GoPlanner. GoPlanner was more, can I use tech to augment, say, housewives and senior citizens to start selling insurance and eventually become planners in their geography, right? So you have an app, you have a recommendation sort of engine sitting on it that helps you pitch the right plan to right customers and the right pitch points also. It creates a bunch of stuff, right? It gives you marketing tools, it gives you training. You can have the payment link going to the customer and punch in policies instantly. I also built Fine-Tune, which is infra for insurance brokers. So allowing a brick and mortar insurance broker to have a policy bazaar like website, and also an app for their agents or their sub brokers or whatever, right? And then built on it like the CRM, the telecalling CRM and all of that. Post that, I joined Ola. At Ola, I led the insurance business, right? So it was part of Ola Financial Services. We called it Ola Insure internally. Followed by, and after Ola, I actually joined Paytm to lead the Paytm insurance broking business. And after that, I'm here. hopefully looking to build something in insurance again.
So what made you, convert from, a techie
Acha, from
techie to
I wasn't a techie.
business?
I was more a data guy. Obviously, we
Oh, okay.
coded on SAS and SQL at that time, and then later Python. But I was, I think, even there we were trying to. I think the mathematical part of it or the coding part of it is still fairly simple. The complicated part is applying it to a business problem, right? And I think that is very tricky and very non-trivial. And I think after my transition to Aditya Birla is when I actually first learned how sales happens, and I saw it being built because I joined a year before we launched, right?
Yes.
It was a very interesting problem and a lot of obviously human psychology also, and business also, and obviously the kick of getting revenue as well, right? So that is what I experienced when I had my own startup and then at Ola, and everything was like a data model, right? So everything was an A/B experiment,
Right.
and we could do those tiny A/B experiments on different. So what if we were to test a flight insurance if someone is booking an Ola to an airport, right? And what if we were to say 15 rupees, 25 rupees, 35 rupees and test all those, right? And it builds like a pricing sort of curve.
Right.
And at some point your revenue maximizes. So everything, and I think that DNA of thinking A/B testing and data and what could influence this and that, I think is what made me turn to business, because business is also fundamentally about
Right.
that. So yeah, I just found myself in business after a certain period of time.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I think
Yeah.
you are very rare combination of business, insurance, and technology. So
Mhm.
What do you think? What's broken in insurance industry, and what AI can do greatly there in industry?
Oh, so a lot of things are broken. I think I like saying that amongst all financial services, payments, lending, wealth, and insurance is like the poor country cousin where innovation typically comes very late. Our cost to serve is very high, right? So in a typical insurance policy or for an insurer, 70% would be 60-70% would be claim ratios, but the rest of it is fluff, right? It could be OPEX, it could be CACs, and that takes you to a combined ratio of 110%. Products are not personalized, so you have actuaries sitting in the back building these products that may or may not be relevant for different micro segments of customers. We have a lot of static pricing, so your motor insurance premium is a function of your car, right, and the age of your car, and not so much you and how you drive, right? So a lot of things are broken in insurance, and particularly it is sad because insurance at its core, I believe, is a data algorithm, right? It's a probabilistic mathematical algorithm predicting your probability of having a crash or your probability of getting hospitalized. And actuaries were the first data scientists in the world, but somehow we've lost our way, and it has become more a sort of a sales engine than the actual core of the product, which is what it was. So a lot of things are broken in insurance that I think can be fixed now that you have AI coming in.
Okay, that's great. And what do you think? What will be most affected area with AI? It will be underwriting, claims, distribution, risk, or what do you think? Like,
I think a little bit of everything, and I think to reimagine insurance, you need to think of it as a chain of events, right? Right from when I sort of target a customer, the emotions that matter to the customer when they think of, or the anxieties that matter, and therefore the distribution pattern around it, to pricing every customer dynamically basis, not just actuarial data, but also behavioral data, your contextual data to how you drive or how you interact or what are your health needs and so on, all the way to the claims angle as well, right? So how do you, at the moment of truth, make sure that the claim is cheaper, faster, instantaneous, right? And how do you also, in that same process, also balance out frauds to make sure that the claim is, the justified claim is delivered, right? So all of these things actually AI can influence. But I personally believe that both distribution and claims have the highest impact, right? They're the highest impact from an ROI perspective for an
Okay.
insurer.
so I think you are saying distribution will be impacted.
Distribution and claims
mostly.
both
Both will
different
be
ways.
impacted.
Distribution from a more revenue. So for the same marketing dollars, can I get more revenue at a maybe lower CAC or lower commissions? And on claim side is where most of your, say, cost sits, right? So at that moment of truth, how can I make sure that my cost of an insurer goes down? And obviously when the cost goes down, premium goes down, hopefully. And that leads to more distribution and more customers. So that virtuous loop is what, on board distribution claim side, is what I think AI can actually influence.
Can you tell something specific, anything specific about distribution, anything specific will be changed, how we interact with customer, how we do conversation with customer. Okay, do you think that will be changed in some way, or what do you think?
And I think certain elements of it I've tried at my stints. I was on the affinity platform side of things, right? So digital platform trying to embed insurance contextually in a journey. So we've already seen the impact of being able to say predict which customers more likely to buy, what channels to use, right? And being more efficient, optimize there. We've seen the impact of being more conversational in how we communicate, right? And also the communication being different for you and different for someone else, different for someone who's actually on his way to the airport and might have a worry about missing his flight, right? All the way to, in that same journey, being able to offer counter offers, being able to recommend the right bundling of plan, right? We used to use a lot of plan bundling in my startup Go Planner, wherein the app would, through a recommendation engine, recommend the right combination of plans and sum insured that makes sense for this customer versus another customer, right? Now, all of these at that time were slightly more, I think, more Q&A types, or maybe predetermined answers to a certain situation. But autonomous agents and autonomous AI now allows you to be dynamic in that point of time, right?
True.
And be a lot more creative in how you bundle it and also how you sell the story around it.
Yes.
And I think a lot of generative AI is also being used in creating very targeted marketing stories to customers, addressing their anxieties, which again improves your conversion rate, and therefore reduces your distribution CAC. And again, the whole loop around cost and revenues is built. So a lot of use cases. I think distribution itself could have like 20 ways of using AI across the entire process, from awareness, consideration, to figuring out the right plan, to actually getting you to buy it instantly, to pre-filling a lot of the databases, proxies and all that.
So I think thinking is the limit, right? That's what I can see, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what mindset needs to be changed, right? I think
the tools are available. I think it's the intelligence is, your intelligence is limited by how you see how to apply it. I think the tools are there. The application is what is non-trivial in a sense, right? Figuring that out is the crux of the matter.
So one more thing I found in your experience, you are doing data science since almost a decade now, right? So you talk to me about your stories, how you used to build ML models and that used to give you great recommendations, right? Mm-hmm. And now is also AI. So what do you think? What has changed in this, 10 years that I think it's getting so much popular now actually?
Yeah, so when I started my career, we used to build models, right? So there'd be like a team of statisticians. We were the business analysts. There will be data engineers and so on. And it used to take us months to say hard code a model, right? And we'd fit it, and we were using SAS, etc., right? This is 2008, for example, right? And we'd figure out what features will make sense. We would test each feature, and there'd be fitting the curve and all of that, right? In 2016, 17, when I came back onto this side for Aditya Birla, and I was trying to build a model to say detect fraud, right? It was 5 lines of Python code, right?
Yeah.
Because the computing had evolved, the pre-made models were available which would fit it. You didn't have to look at hyperparameters, features, etc. It would figure a lot of that out itself, right? So that had already been the jump from 2008 to 2016, 17, right? Now you have more, and even then, right? For example, we were trying to figure out fraud, right? And even adjudicate claims automatically. And we would try to fine-tune machine learning models to each different unstructured data set, and the accuracy was very poor at that time. Now, generalized AI models can actually read PDFs. For example, they can read discharge summaries, they can read hospital bills, make sense of it. There used to be models first to digitize data, and then models to then, or maybe even in some cases, just rule engines, not even models, right? A lot of that now can be done, right? So a lot of that can be done for you, and it can be broken down into different parts of that entire process of, say, a claim adjudication, right? Right from fraud detection to taking unstructured data, digitizing it, to build rule engines and all of that. All of that has become very simple, right? So now the question is, what do you build on that foundation, right?
True.
And that is the evolution that has happened now. Because I've been hearing about the AI wave was coming, say, since 2008, right? The AI wave was coming, and there were some background changes, but it didn't impact our daily lives as much, right? Today, everything I do, I pass it on ChatGPT and it rewrites it back for me, right?
True.
It's just become a part of my life. I don't even go to Google now. I go to ChatGPT. Obviously, I understand hallucination and all that, but at least I get the answer as quickly as
Yes.
possible.
So it's giving you 70-80% of accuracy, right? That's what is
Yeah.
needed to get started, right? We don't
Yeah.
need a perfection. Even humans, we make mistakes, right?
Yes.
We are even not 100%, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we also need a guardrails on top of us, but just like that, you know.
It just needs to beat the human, say, underwriter or the human adjudicator, right? In that sense, it doesn't need to be 100% accurate, because
True.
anything in this, nothing in this world is black and white, right? So it'll always have certain errors, but it has to be better than a human. That's where we're hopefully headed with.
So one more thing I found in a stock trading, we found that we are moving from typical human-based errors, human-based traders to more of a algorithmic traders,
Yeah.
right? I think that's what happening or happened in trading world. Why? Because we as a humans were getting biased actually with a lot of things, right? So I think at that time the comment was that, okay, I think machines are not having any bias with anyone. They work
Yeah.
in a certain manner. So I think underwriting can be done in that way, in a very proper way, you know, with the AI, or what do you think in that way?
Yeah, my personal opinion is that AI is going to augment the underwriter, not so much replace the underwriter, right? Because the underwriter still has a lot of understanding. As we say, right, the model is as good as the features that you put in, right? So the feature engineering of what will matter, what will not matter, still comes from the underwriter. But the underwriters right now, and underwriters right now, for example, work on Excel, right? And they build these, and they work with actuaries to build models, and then they put some sense of what will happen, their judgment of what will happen. AI agents could be obviously unbiased, but they could also be sharper, right? Because they could now build thousands of models for micro segments in the same time that it takes one underwriter to build one model at a static level or at an overall level, right? So I could have a very different underwriting model for, say, a domestic help customer looking to buy health insurance versus someone who's a frequent business traveler, right? Because the nuances are very different. Underwriters understand that, but it's almost impossible to build the model, right? But AI can build those micro models and, more importantly, iterate at a very fast speed.
Right.
The same way algorithmic trading works, right?
Right.
So algorithmic trading does not always give you like a huge accuracy gain, right? But it does it in such a microsecond of time that it iterates so fast that even 1% delta compounds, right?
Yes.
5%.
So they manage
delta
the risk well, right? I would say.
And over a period of time, because they can keep adjusting it,
Right.
right? Same thing should ideally apply to insurance, but any underwriting model or actuarial model is like looked at after 3 years, right? And people look at which segment did it work and not work and so on. And that is the problem. Whereas here you can be a lot more dynamic in real time and learn from what is bleeding and what is not bleeding and get it to that right premium that is needed for the customer.
Right. So you rightly pointed, right? I think in actuaries, we generally divide the risk equally, right, across the people. With AI, we can kind of personalize, and new kind of models can emerge where we can have a better profitability, right? I think so. That's what possible now, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, good example in credit cards at Capital One, right? We used to say unit of N. So you start with a population of 100, but can you build like the more accurate model at smaller segment, right? So you would say build it at a decile level, then make it even tinier. So the goal was to be able to say figure out risk at a unit of 1, right? Uniquely for you, can I be the most accurate risk prediction, or the probability is more accurate? And that is the more granular you are, the better, the more efficient you are. I think that is the goal. I think of this.
That's true. And like one more thing I am hearing a lot, like, so there are two kind of audience. One is the audience who is very experimental and they want to try new things faster. At the same time, there are other kind of audience who is seeing what's coming up, like they are doing wait and watch. And like biggest concern right now is ROI. So what do you think? Can AI give a ROI, or how, like people should see it?
Yeah, the ROI question actually is a big question, right? So when when internet was coming, right, a lot of people questioned, yes, I can read things across the globe, but what is the ROI there?
Right.
And then people built models on top of it, right? So internet was the foundation layer, but then you had e-commerce coming on it. Now you can book a cab on an app, right? And that talks to drivers via the internet, right? And I think a lot of that figuring out the application layer is going to happen with AI. Insurance is one use case, and it has a bunch of different use cases even with inside it. But I personally believe that now the time has come that a lot of applications can be built because accuracy levels are at a certain stage. The ability to ingest data from many different unstructured sources are now easier, right? And also people have built the foundational models, right? Then, and you have smart people building on top of it and refining it and fine tuning it and so on. So now is a good time to look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one more thing is that like when we saw digitization was happening a decade back, right? When we were seeing every process with a digital transformation, at that time also we just kept on investing without seeing just ROI, right? But eventually it gave the ROI to people right now. Right now, I think we cannot think any business model without digitization, right? So maybe future we will see, I think, AI world. But yeah, I think that's a good answer. So if we are starting, or if you are starting a new insurance company, right? So what do you think, what's the way, how things will look different if with the AI, if you're starting 3-4 years or 5 years back, and now if you're starting, right? So what's the difference you are seeing in this?
Oh, I would love, if someone would give me a license, I would love to start an insurance company. I think fundamentally, right, in anything you have to break it down to its fundamental levels, right? So what is insurance in a nutshell? There are 3 things that matter to insurance, right? You have demand. Demand is the customer side, understanding anxieties. What are the anxieties of a particular TG? And not necessarily breaking it down into health insurance, car insurance, etc. Right? So, for example, an Ola driver has anxieties around not being able to pay in one shot. He needs to cover his car. He's worried about accidents, right? He's also worried about health of his family and so on, and potentially paying for his kids' education. So all of these can be bundled to create a product for that segment. And how do you reach out to that segment in a more conversational way, explain things more vernacularly and all that? That is the demand side of things that I would build in my insurance company, right? So make it a conversational discussion than forms being filled and static forms being filled and long waiting queues to get an insurance. It would be instant that this is your price. Tap, buy.
Right.
On the supply side of things, supply for us is basically the care provider, right? Whether it is a hospital or a garage or even someone just covering you for cyber insurance, right? All of these would be just predefined protocols, right? So you come in, it says yes, no. Pre-authorization is done instantly. It looks at forms, it figures out what to pay, and it instantly pays it in like microseconds without you having to fill up any form or wait and spend an extra day in the hospital for your claim and all of that, right? And then the third leg, I think, is the risk pricing itself, right? So, and I like giving the Ola example, right? Because you have customers on one side, drivers on the other side, and actually a pricing algorithm there as well, right? That figures out what price for this, and it has surge pricing and all of that. The same thing now starts applying to underwriting as well, right? Can I price you not just for your risk, but also your willingness to pay?
Right.
Because not everyone has the same, say, willingness to pay. But at the end of it, as a bundle, those prices start making sense, right? So you may have a high risk on motor. I mean, typically drivers that drive long distances, but they might have lower risk on, say, health insurance because the kind of hospitals they go to are, say, lower severity hospitals. And as a bundle, it makes sense. So if I were building an insurer, everything would be an API. Everything would be adjudicated by a central AI system. It would have autonomous decisions, right? Autonomous decisions, obviously with guardrails around it on what is ethical and not. And potentially 20-member teams could build 1,000 crore premium book, right? As an insurer. Or maybe it could also be very niche in the segment that it behaves.
True.
Which is what actually India needs in terms of distribution or penetration. And just like kill that segment, not kill figuratively.
But monetize that, right? I
Yes,
think that's
exactly.
what basically we can do.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's great. So we are seeing many companies are making billions with very smaller team.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's a potential in insurance as well. So
yeah.
that's great actually. And do you think penetration will improve with AI? Any contribution it can do? Because if you see India's penetration is hardly 3-4% in terms of insurance, right? So do you think it can be improved with AI?
Yeah, in fact, I think that is one of the biggest impacts, I believe, right? Why isn't the penetration high? And we were discussing this earlier.
Yes.
If you look at retail health insurance in India, right, after 2021, I think, so in terms of the number of people that have bought retail health insurance, that is of their own volition, they've bought a retail health insurance, the number is flat. It's actually the premium that is increasing. The average premium is increasing because average cost on the hospital side and OPEX on the all of this is increasing.
Yes.
And therefore you say that the insurance penetration or insurance premiums have been increasing. right? But the number of people, it's the same person that is now buying from Policy Bazaar, from a different insurer here, from Insurance Dekho and all of that, and circling, right? New people are not entering. And why are new people not entering? Because the cost of servicing people, and especially low premiums, just doesn't make sense. If you look at brokers, most brokers focus on large corporates to cover them, right? They don't focus on SMEs. And SMEs actually are, I would believe, more at risk when, say, one flood happens, right, in that city, or a fire breaks down, or there's some business interruption because of something outside their control, right? But no one wants to cater to that segment. Right. No one wants to go to tier 3 India and build products there because the maths does not work out, right?
And it's very complex as well, right?
It's complex to model. Yes, 100%. But I think complex modeling is not as big a problem in these days now that you have alternate data available from different sources. You have Aadhaar, you have the India stack. I think the bigger problem is the economics of the, so you have say 100 rupees of premium, 70 rupees of claims, but that 30 rupees of everything else, distribution, CAC, OPEX, etc. in this case becomes inflated, right? As a proportion of the premium, because the premium is tiny. And I think AI can just do that.
Right.
It can just knock it off, right? You can just talk to a voice agent and that just tells you what plan to buy, one tap and you buy it, and it does a UPI auto pay. And some of these exactly are things that, as I was telling you, we were trying to solve it as well, right? So because you have micro merchants and building parametric products for them and shop insurance for them at a low price, at a low CAC, etc. Again, the power of say micro covers embedded in a certain transaction and on one tap being added. And then you can switch it off at any time, but that allows you to experience insurance in smaller chunks and then expand to bigger plans. So I think a lot of things can happen with AI. It's just a question of imagining how, and a lot of experimentation, obviously, right there, which it allows you to do very fast now. Unlike earlier, when you had to like build these things and it'll take you 9 months to launch one plan, now you can do it very fast in like months or even weeks for that matter.
So I think previously even AI used to be a couple of months project, maybe 6-month project, even basic one, but now it's a days project or weeks project actually.
Like you can set up a voice bot and a prompt in like 1 hour now.
So I think it has become.
And it'll create the TNCs, or it'll create the brochures, it'll create the videos, all of that in one shot. Like all of that is just changed.
True.
It's overwhelming how much it has changed, but it's changed quite a lot now.
So based on talking to you, maybe what I learned is that previously to reduce the capex, the way was, automating the stuff, I think a decade back, right? Now then players like, Echo came in where they have no physical offices or, very tech only model where they were, very reduce capex actually. And now the modern way to build the stuff is with the AI, right? You build a lot of AI agents in your company and that can automate a lot of stuff, right? Basically. So I think that's the way, right? What do you think? Like that's the right?
Yeah, I think one of the mistakes that were made even during the digitization phase, right? We were just taking the offline process and digitizing it. So instead of filling up the claim form on paper, now you go to a website and fill it up and feel it takes you 2x the time. And the process then it someone downloads it and then sends it. So all of that has to be reimagined, right? So why do you even need to fill up a form at all, right? The authentication of a customer is now very easy. KYC is very easy. Authentication of whether you have a policy. You don't need to upload the policy documents, etc. Your phone number is a unique key to figure out what plans you have, what is covered, etc. And the process of there's a lot of manual process, and I think the problem in insurance is that 80% of it is manual processes. Someone is looking at a form, someone is comparing it with something else. All of that is automatic, right? Because the data pool is available at scale to these agents to make those decisions. You need to train them once and they come pre-trained, but then they learn and then the next time they don't need it, right? And therefore you don't need a huge amount of this manual process. All of it can happen instantaneously. That I think is the power of building this right.
Great. So there are many more companies, right? I think Indian market is one of the big one, and we can also see good traction in AI in a global market as well. So how do companies can adapt these things, in their companies? How they should approach, how the process look like?
I don't think so. Adoption of AI is more it partly is a DNA thing you need to rethink. I may not be the expert in company adoption of AI, but what I've seen, some good practices that I've seen, right? So in one of the companies that I used to work with, our CEO used to have added a KPI on what are you doing, how are you using AI, how are you leveraging AI to solve your problem. It could just be basic Gen AI, but it could be slightly more, things more deeper, right? There was always constant communication. Acha, have you discovered this? Have you discovered that? And there's a lot of experimentation, right? I think that is needed. a lot of business guys. So today business, so for example, we say business is separate and tech is separate, and even underwriters actuaries are very separate, right? So they sit in silos. A lot of them will have to sit together, or maybe even over a coffee chat, figure out, array, this is a problem and this is too painful for a customer. What can I change in this journey, right? Secondly, you may have to also start from the customer moment of truth backwards, right? So I am a customer looking to buy health insurance. What are the things that are going on in my head, right? And what kind of customer am I? How personas are built when you build a product, right? I'm a customer. I'm a domestic help who has had an accident in my family, and I want to take them to a hospital. So right from that point, getting me a second opinion, helping me figure out which hospital to take to, the triaging of the claim, all documents automatically sent. All of that will have to be like someone will have to these teams will have to sit together and think through the journey first, and then work backwards on, what are the things that you can use AI to improve or just digitize.
So maybe it is AI is not just for automation, but it can also create unique customer experience.
Exactly.
Right? I think
that is the more powerful
value
impact.
prop, right?
Yes.
Compared to competitors.
That is solving for the value proposition, the end value proposition, reducing cost, increasing revenue for insurers is fundamentally what it has to solve. And once it starts doing that and you start seeing quick wins, is when it becomes like the norm, right?
True. And do you think AI wave is bubble or it's real?
No, as I was telling you, right? So we've seen a lot of these highs and lows, right? I have personally seen it, right? Once upon a time, neural networks were going to replace a lot of your. We used to do random forest in a lot of our and it used to be very good at predicting because the kind of data it was, sparse data, etc., more categorical data, and so on. I think there've been hype cycles and bust cycles. I think this now, the latest cycle, I think, is when it has become more easy to use for the common man, right? And whenever you've seen, you had mobile apps, right? When mobile apps became easy to use and you had a lot of people using smartphones is when it suddenly exploded, right? At one point, internet at its very start was just a couple of people using internet, and then it exploded, right?
True.
I think this is that time when it will explode because a lot of people using Gen AI, a lot of people just getting natively using AI. A lot of younger, like my daughter asked ChatGPT to write a story on her, right, and her favorite dragon, and it actually wrote it, and it asked it for a coloring book and a coloring page, and it did all of that, right? That is insane. The amount of things you can now use AI for, and I think any good technology is a bunch of things being built on each other, right? So you have foundational models, LLMs, but then it links to tools, and then those tools and then autonomous agents, and then those autonomous agents initially are just doing basic automation work, but then they're doing even smarter work. And then that is how these things start growing. And that's hopefully where we are right now.
Yeah, so I think there is a chasm, right? I think good book, Crossing the Chasm.
Yes,
so I can see, I think it was an early majority.
Exactly.
Right? But it crossed the chasm. So
now you have a lot more wider adoption and like smarter people. So business guys who couldn't figure out how to use AI and were dependent on engineering guys now can build their own like website in an hour or less, right? And that allows us to do more iterations, and that allows us to be more smarter in how you can use it.
So one of the insurtech company I just heard about them actually. So even processes are changing actually now, right? Previously there used to be UI UX rounds, like right. PM used to go to UI UX designer. They used to ask them design like this, that, and like right now PM are going to tools like Bolt.ai, Lovable AI, Rapid, this kind of tools they are using to design the things they want with their own way, and giving to devs or giving it to people to just showcase. That's
prototypes. Basically,
prototypes they are building.
What you wasted a lot of time on is that between the business, what is in someone's head, to actually seeing it live, there were like too many different teams working. Now this guy can actually at least show you a prototype of how I want it to be, and maybe edit it, and then that is a very strong starting point, because you have something tangible to change, and that makes iterations faster. Otherwise, you get stuck up in writing PRDs and all. I don't think I've written a PRD in the longest time because ChatGPT does it for me. So
even I saw your post, right? Like before sitting in a plane, you actually build something and presented. That GPT gave you, or some tool gave you something, and that was the story, maybe.
Made ready. So I was meeting someone, actually this is someone in the government, and we were pitching for a product and how that would look like, right? So I gave it to Bolt, and Bolt works on web, so it doesn't need to work on this thing, right? So I gave it this thing, and it was processing. By the time I landed, the website, everything was already ready, right? So I could just go directly into the meeting, and it had made a beautiful dashboard and how it works, and like login, authentic, all of it had made like how I would. In fact, it thought of things that I would have also not thought of.
True.
Which is the power of ChatGPT. It augments a lot of things or fills up a lot of gaps that you don't think of.
So yeah, I think tooling, there are a lot more tooling available, right?
Yes.
Which we can do. I think you also discussed, or we were discussing about like Google Notebook LM, right? I think we can do. So I think you only said somewhere, right? You can create a podcast with the Google LM, right? Like very quickly, right? I think just upload docs and tell it to do, right? It can do those crazy things actually.
Absolutely, yeah.
So one of the company I was talking to, like what they were doing is like, for an example, IRDA launched some circular, right? And like they had a quarterly plan or something, right? Basically. And now they are uploading all of those files somewhere. And now they are asking question, what impact will have based on this circular on my quarterly,
one of the biggest use cases for us was an Ask Me Anything on our telecalling transcripts, right? So you have a lot of customers interacting with telecallers, right? And telling the telecaller, and the telecaller is handling it in real time.
Right.
Ki acha ye samajh nahi aaya, yeah, what happens if I have diabetes and I want to claim for this? Those scenarios that a customer has, or even like basic stuff is not clear. What do you mean by malpractice in a professional indemnity insurance, right? What is the meaning of malpractice in my language? And what we realize is that if you were to transcribe all of these calls, right? And today, say a trainer or a quality analyst would look at, say, some percentage of those calls and give advice to the telecaller on how to sell better. But there's a huge, rich body of information lying there. Sometimes we'd have product managers join in on calls, etc. But it's a very limited way of looking at it. Now you just put it all of this body of knowledge, and then you can do an Ask Me Anything, right? So you can ask it, what are the top 3 reasons why people buy? What are the top 3 reasons why people don't buy? Give me edge cases. What are things that I can explain better? And it can inform all the way to your marketing, right? What is the first page that people see, and how does it solve the problem? How do you get to the actual outcome or value prop that you solve rather than giving gyan, right? What is fluff and what is more needed, and therefore you can change the order of pitch points on your web journeys also, right? Not just in your telecalling scripts. So that I think is the power, right? So it's a feedback loop angle, which I think is people are underestimating the power of that. And I think that has a much more bigger impact, right? Similarly in underwriting. Today, as I said, the feedback loop is very delayed. I don't know, I built a product today, but as we say, cost of goods sold in insurance, you see it after 4 years, right?
Right.
But you're actually seeing it in micro segments at various different places and learning. And there's a lot of learning that you can do from there to make it more dynamic, etc., adjust, etc., and drive different cohorts and measure the impact very differently, drive a lot more A/B experiments. That I think is the true power of all of this.
We can do experiment much faster. Faster. We don't need to wait for months to see the result. We can do a lot of things faster. And we will also need a smaller amount of manpower to handle those things.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
I think we don't
technically, I mean, we were discussing this, right? Technically, you could have 30 people building a insurer, right?
Yes.
So you need someone who's very good at underwriting, and actually you may need someone from the claim adjudication side who understands the ecosystem better, right? So the hospital ecosystem or the garage ecosystem, and what can go wrong and what can fraud potentially look like. But engineers, you can do the same work with 10 engineers that you used to take like 500 engineers for at one point. True. Right? And then just business guys focusing on each different TG or segment separately. And that's it. That's all you need, right? All of this is then sorted for you.
So what do you think about distribution? Like physical distribution will also be impacted, or that will be, have a great use cases with AI? Or
I think, I've always been a fan of augmenting Phygital insurance, right? Phygital. I don't like the word Phygital, but it's physical but assisted by someone who can answer queries at that level, right? Classic example, right? So we were building this product for SMEs, fundamentally fire-allied perils, shop insurance, right? Now the problem there is that the person on the ground may not be an expert in this, right? He's there for something else. And he has a bunch of questions, or he has a bunch of questions coming from the customer that he may not have an answer to, right? Is this covered? Is this not covered? How do I claim, etc.? Which now you have a bot to answer in real time, right? So essentially I could have a bot talking to the customer directly,
right?
Or I could just ask the question to the bot and it answers and I tell it to you,
right?
Simplify it to you. Imagine the power that it has now on physical humans, right? Why do you need physical like humans? Because the human has the empathy to connect with the customer. True. And the human is able to nudge you about anxieties and give you the context in your area, right? Ki Gupta ji ka ladka hospitalized hua, to aapko health insurance lena chahiye. That is very powerful. but then being able to answer the complexity of an insurance product, and health insurance is super complex, right? One of the most complex products. I believe it is more complex than life insurance. Being able to answer any of those questions in real time and close the sale there, that is powerful. Right now, there's a lot of back and forth, right, that happens, and that is why the productivity of the human agency is not fully utilized, right? So I believe AI will have a very powerful role in augmenting physical distribution as well as digital distribution. A lot of physical will then move to digital because people will just be able to talk to a voice bot who will explain to them what the product is in there, this thing, interact with videos, maybe conversationally figure out what to buy and buy it there and then.
Right.
So, and typically it starts, as we've already seen, starts from the simpler products. So travel insurance has moved online. Motor, significant chunk has moved online. Bike insurance though massively has moved online.
Right.
And slowly it will grow to term life and then eventually to health insurance also.
So I think many of the product doesn't require assistant to close the sale, right? So that's what is happening. If I see the same thing couple of years back, I think that was not the case, right? Even to convert the I think simple sachet product used to, I think maybe travel was not even unassisted product in past, right? But now it's assisted. The user behavior also changed, right? We are adapting the new things, right?
Yeah, that trust. I think insurance fundamentally it's about trust, right? The problem earlier was that no one trusted these platforms. Trust was a big problem. Second problem was contextualize. That is explaining.
Right.
Just helping answer my question. Helping me as a customer, as a layman understand what is professional indemnity insurance. What is travel insurance? Why do I need it? Where will it help? Where will it not work? These two problems actually are being sorted, right? Trust, because a lot of people have just started transacting online. So they now know that, theek hai, as long as it is a trusted website, typically of the insurers, I know that policy to aa jayegi, farzi nahi hai.
Farzi nahi hai. And in the end, they are buying from brand only, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They are
I think if anything, AI will make insurers more powerful. That is a shift, right? India is one of the very few countries, and I like saying this, where distributors have a lot more power over insurers because it's a more demand deficit maybe market, right? Less people looking to buy and the distributor pushes them to buy.
Yeah.
This will just move that needle towards insurers, which I actually believe is good because a lot of the design of products will be more like the insurer talking to the customer directly is a very good thing in general, right? A lot more personalization, a lot more cheaper products, maybe getting it to a place where the customer sees it as a valuable product, right? And all of that, instead of having like middlemen that lead to loss of information also partly.
I think one more good point you only said that like we can go multi-language with the help of voice bots, right? So many distribution network or many places we are not still reaching to due to barrier because I think hiring a person and then training him and that itself is a time and cost both.
I was telling you, right? I had a telecalling team sitting out of Gurgaon, right? Now in Gurgaon, getting a good guy to answer Tamil is still easy.
Yes.
But and I have a 40-member team, right? Then I have to get someone for Tamil, Malayalam, Odia, Tulu, Kannada, etc., right? Yes. So it's just and then you have to have it for even dialects, right? To be able to actually converse in a very direct way, right? Which is very hard when you actually have humans because you need a different person for different distinct and therefore leads to loss of efficiency, right? Because I have one person for a certain percentage of calls and only at a certain threshold will I hire a person for that language. Only then it makes sense for me economically. Yes. I don't have that problem with voice bots, right? Because the voice bot can instantly change languages. They can instantly understand context. They may not answer in that language, but they can read in that language and answer still in Hindi, English, or maybe some major languages. That is what it allows you to do. And therefore, again, the cost comes down and efficiency goes up.
So I think one more point is there, right? I think it's not just about cost and context, but it's also about, what is good and bad. Like, so you should not talk like this in this region.
Exactly.
Some kind of
some of those things can be
normal.
pre-trained. Yeah.
So in some other places.
Yeah, I think, AI is going to make mistakes. For the next 2 years, 3 years, it is going to make mistakes. Same as someone learning for the first time. It is essentially emulating human learning. But over a period of time, it learns at scale.
Better,
right? So,
get better.
And therefore exponentially improves, which is what we are underestimating. It may not be at the level of a human telecaller. The conversion rates of AI bots is not today, at least today, it is not at the same level. Because your human telecaller can modulate voice very, very this thing, which AI is learning, but it will get there. The first 10 seconds are important. How do you handle objections? How do you give a counterpoint, etc., which an AI is learning, and it will get there. Human telecallers can lie, which AI telecaller hopefully won't. So that advantage won't be there, but at least it is objective, right, and unbiased, and so on, right. So it that can be done much better.
So one more thing is that like AI in sales, it may take time, but certain things where we don't need a conversion, maybe that can happen very better, right? Maybe if you're doing a claim, you want to verify, I think, is the person is actually hospitalized in hospital, or is hospital real or whatever, right? So that calling needs to be done, right? But I think that calling doesn't happen because of cost or whatever, right? Maybe out of 100 we are doing 2 or 3 calls. Now we can do 100% with both, right? We don't need a kind of a person, right? Basically, so maybe adaptation will be much
because in
better.
real time you can link all these data sources, right? So you have, the location of the person, hospital data, the policy data, other alternate data sources to tell you whether or not he's in the so how does a fraud investigator work, for example, right? So the reason why claims is painful is because there's a lot of fraud and waste, more importantly waste that happens of the policy, right? You have an insurance plan, the hospital will ask you to stay an extra day, extra procedures. You have an insurance plan, your garage will actually put in, will replace parts that don't need to be replaced. Right. So things like that context being available in real time in visual form, right? So you can take a photo of the damage. All of that it can process immediately, which a human takes time, right? And because a human takes time, most of the claims adjudicators sit on large ticket claims because the delta there is more. And therefore, most of the fraud happens in low ticket claims. Right. And that is the problem. And because fraud happens, we don't realize it. But at a delayed level, our premiums go up at a certain point because claim ratio goes up, insurance premiums are jacked. If this is done properly, and again, as I said, it's not just about AI, which is the tool here. It is about how do you use it intelligently, right? In that context, and how do you use your brains and the learnings that our claim adjudicators have had over time and fraud investigators have had over time, right? And how do you train it in those contexts, right? So very classic fraud check is that what is the PIN code of the customer and what is the PIN code of the hospital. If it is too far, high chance it is a fraud, right? Right. You look at outliers in terms of the actual claim cost for a certain kind of disease and a certain kind of disease code, ICD codes and so on. And if it is an outlier, right, you then flag it and then you see what was extra. Now, all of this can happen in microseconds, right? All these different models working together in microseconds can happen with a swarm of agents, right? Each agent is good at one thing, doing it together, and the agent that is talking to the customer conversationally can figure out all of this. Even behavioral cues in the conversation are now extra data points, right? Today, you fill a form, right? There's no context of how long it took you, etc., right? If someone is filling up a form, for example, in credit cards, right? The time it takes for you to fill up and the time of the day when you're filling up a credit card application is also a variable that impacts risk. True. Right? We know that. True. We don't apply it in insurance, right? Because it's just a standard form. No one has put their brains on this. Now there is this entire body of information. At the time of an accident happening, you can actually have the customer talk through what happened. And then at the time of the garage, you can match that, right? And you can see where abuse happened or wastage happened, right? And things like that. There are a lot of things that you can now do if you are open to getting all these additional data points.
So I think AI can now, by combining this thing, it can ask right questions, right?
Yes.
So maybe
branching paths. Now it doesn't need to be a static journey, right? Which it is unfortunately today. Basis this, I can ask something very different. Basis this, and basis the cues that I had when you bought the policy, I can actually ask something very different, right? And that can actually help me understand the risk or the behavior very well.
So maybe there can be investigator, right? Maybe one is a junior investigator, there is a senior, like most senior, right? Yeah. So, but I think ability to investigate the best is by the most senior, right? Yeah. But I think you cannot send that senior guy everywhere, right? Yeah.
But so you pick and choose where you're more efficient and where at least the rest of it can be flagged much early.
But with AI, I think the AI with over the time, it will become expert, and most of the frauds are investigated with that, most senior one actually. That's kind of experience we can get with the...
I was looking at this other AI company in claims, and what they also do is, and this is more for US. US is a very litigious market, right? So they also prepare legal case summaries for the claim adjudicator or why they had approved or rejected, right? It's not just about... So it doesn't leave it as a black box. It tells it what are the reasons why and why this should be deducted and why this should not be deducted or why this could potentially be a fraud. Therefore, we need this extra information. Right. All of that part is, even today, adjudicators do that, but it's too much of paperwork, right? It's too much of time away from what their core duty is, right? At least that part can be completely automated.
Yes.
And that's how all these different building blocks fit in.
And I think AI agents or something we talk, right? I think it's not just one model. It can be reused, right? I think it's like humans, right? So we build one model, two model, three agents, right? Basically, or 10 agents.
Yeah.
So maybe that 10 agent can be reused actually, right? I
Yeah,
think
that's the power, right?
Actually.
So even as humans, we have very different mental models for dealing with certain situations, and very different mental models for example, in your academics, you have a very different mental model, but in your professional life, you have a different model. In your family life, you have a different mental model. That is now possible here, right? In you can segregate all of that. So what happens during a claim, for example, in insurance, right? What happens in health can be very different from what happens in motor. Also, instead of a generic LLM models, you can have more fine-tuned models that understand the language, that understand insurance, that understand what happens here, that speak the right word, that don't speak the wrong words, for example, right? Because which is a big concern for insurers, that what if it says something randomly, right? You can always constrain through fine-tuning on your data and on this. And once you train it on the best practices of insurer A, then it can be infinitely replicable to insurer like 1,000, right? 1,000 different insurers. So you've learned from the best practices, and that makes the entire industry go more efficient and brings down costs, as I said, right? It makes it more efficient.
So I think we talk multiple great use cases, but what do you think? Once I develop, should I directly start using it, or what's the approach that you generally suggest? Like once I have a use case, I have built it, then should I start using it? What do you think?
No, I don't think. I think at the end of it, there's a very good reason why insurance is regulated, right? You have to obviously check for biases, right? Models will pick up biases, right? So classic. I was telling you the other example, right? LexisNexis trained on claims data, health claims data, and picked up pin codes as one of the predictors of loss ratios, right? What it didn't realize is that pin code is also a proxy for race, because there are certain pin codes that have predominance of a certain race and so on, right? But race is discriminatory. You can't discriminate between people on the basis of race. So whenever you have a model or some format, you have to pass it. You have to check whether race is splitting the way it behaves and so on, and then you identify that there's an underlying bias of one of the variables, right? So whatever you do, you still have to work it on a sandbox, and then and this is what we used to do at digital platforms, right? Whenever we launched a product, we launch it on 1%. And have test and control, and then from 1% go to 100%. So even when you launch it, you see actual behavior at edge cases, because you can always have a human handling it at low scales, right? And only once you're very comfortable do you scale it up. That's how I think all of this will pan out.
And I think we can expect failures as well, right? I think some model we thought like it will work like this, it might not perform.
The problem with autonomy is that, right? You can't predict. I mean, either you just have like an IVR flow where there's no variance of how it behaves. The problem with that is then you have to hard code every single node, every single decision point, right? Which you can't, which is the whole point of doing this. Or you go with AI, and it unfortunately also has autonomy. Also maybe is slightly more creative in how it answers the same question like 10 times. It might have a slightly different answer. So you have to be okay with some of that, but you also have to guardrails at what it cannot do, right? It can't tell you the wrong policy information, period, right? So there has to be a logic, and all of those things have now been sorted, right? So there are ways of having an adversarial sort of model that tests this model and the output and so on. So all of that, I think, and those are things that are going to be solved very quickly.
And like AI models are also coming up with great things nowadays. I think in Intel there used to be saying, right, in every 1 year or 2 year maybe, I think number of chips, number of transistor we can put in an AI model.
What was this law called?
I think Moore's law or something. Not Moore's, I think I forgot that name. I'm sorry, but I think number of transistors we can fit in one chip.
So it becomes exponential over time.
But in AI model, we are seeing every 3-4 months we are seeing some breakthrough.
Things that were not possible 6 months ago are now possible.
So I think that's also moving at good pace. Good pace. And one more thing we are seeing, like cost of models are also decreasing.
I think I was discussing this with, in fact, I was discussing this with Devendra Rani, that what happens on GPUs will eventually come to CPUs, right? You can run these models that are today consume so much GPU in your laptop, in some days in your Apple Watch maybe, perhaps. So the cost of computing is going to go down, right? And exponentially, same law, right? So as that happens, the things that you could do becomes more powerful and faster and
Yes.
so on, right? And cheaper and faster. And therefore it becomes more logically, the ROI starts making sense, the economics. So you have to go today with the view that the cost and the speed will anyways improve over time. So go with that assumption even today.
So I think next wave we are also seeing models are now getting fitted into mobiles actually.
Exactly,
again.
yeah.
I think that already started. Like I think if you follow Google and many giants, I think now models can be fitted into mobile. So
Yeah.
it can be run on a mobile. Now mobiles are also coming with their own GPU chips and all, right? So
exactly.
So maybe I
I think the GPU to CPU migration will be like a big delta,
yes,
big needle mover.
But yeah, that will happen.
Yeah,
maybe
very soon, hopefully.
For sure, actually. One more question to you is like, where can people reach out to you?
Oh, to me, I think people can reach out to me on LinkedIn and WhatsApp maybe, but primarily LinkedIn is the best way to reach out to me.
Okay, great. So I think thank you very much for
Thank you.
being
Thanks a lot.
part of this podcast, and thank you.
Thanks a lot.